and thank you for joining Growing Tech Fast, the condensed Org3D podcast, where we talk about growing tech startups with those who have grown them. Today, I am joined by Paul Porrini, Director of Sales at Zentera. It's great to have you on the podcast today. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. I'm very excited to be here, Emily. Thank you.
Good. Very excited to have you. So for the benefit of our listeners, can you tell me a little bit more about who you are and your mission with the work that you're doing?
Sure. Paul Porrini, Director of Sales at Zentera. What Zentera is a zero trust cybersecurity SaaS solution. I was brought on to grow sales, not only financially, but scale and bodies as well. And I'm very excited for the opportunity. It's something I've been looking for my whole career of building up to this point. So I'm glad to be on the podcast and excited to go through this journey.
Great. Very exciting. So tell me a little bit more about your background and how you began this journey.
Yeah, sure. So I started at the bottom, probably like a lot of people. I kind of fell into technology in general, and I'm so thankful I did. But I started doing renewals at Quest Software. At the time I was there, it was a very exciting time. It was a very successful time. It was before the time that Dell ended up acquiring Quest. But I was basically doing a territory-driven, highly transactional renewals where I was probably doing about 200 or some odd transactions a quarter, probably about $2.5 million a quarter as well. But that first instance in being able to work in that type of high pressure, high structure, very successful environment really got me started going down the path from a software perspective, going into more of an inside sales role / BDR, going to an outside salesperson, going to doing much more larger, difficult sales leading teams to be able to do long sales cycle sales, and then going to my current role, which is leading and building out our sales team at Zentera. So gone from soup to nuts, and I'm very proud of the work that I've put in to get to where I'm at today.
Perfect. Yes, super inspiring, especially to all of our future directors out there. So I hear 2023 is going to be a huge year for you guys. Can you tell me more about the plans for next year?
Very exciting. And I've been searching for an opportunity like this, and I'll get into this probably some of the future questions. But just to kind of give you some backstory on what Zero Trust is. So Zero Trust is a construct that assumes that, in a typical fortress approach, that your security has probably already failed or at some point will fail. So case in point, if you've seen all the ransomware attacks in the news the last few years, Uber, LAUSD, Shutterfly, Apple, Accenture, there's just way too many to list. So it doesn't matter the size of the company. It doesn't matter probably of a lot of the reactive approaches you have to cybersecurity. Where Zero Trust is going to be a little bit different, and where it's going to come into play, that on May 12th, 2021, President Biden issued an executive order that stipulates by the end of fiscal year 2024 that the federal government must adopt security best practices, including all agencies moving toward Zero Trust architecture. So that gives us an enormous opportunity to take advantage of those all of those agencies that are scrambling right now in what we're seeing to try to find Zero Trust vendors, to try to figure out how this is going to play and how this is going to work. So for 2023, We have a huge opportunity from federal where it will probably start to seep down into more of SLED accounts where they start to adopt zero trust. And as that happens, it'll be more mainstream, probably from the commercial sector.
Great. Sounds super, super interesting. It's definitely going to be a very exciting year for you. So are there any particular moments that triggered a change in your thinking or approach to startup life?
Yeah, that's a great question, Emily. So before COVID, when I was traveling often, I'm a voracious reader. So I read a variety of different books. And years ago, I read this book. If you're familiar with Mark Roberge et al., he wrote a book called The Sales Acceleration Formula. So Mark started sales at HubSpot when they were basically at zero. He grew HubSpot to $100 million company. And he did that by positioning selling as a science and not an art. So he basically boils the book down to 5 principles: hiring the right salespeople, training them accordingly, managing sales, generating demand, and experimenting with new technologies. So I got done reading that book and I thought, this is exactly what I want to do. I'm confident I can be Mark. And if I get the opportunity to have a scenario like Mark has, I'm going to make sure that I keep this book close to me and that I try to mimic or mirror the success that he had at HubSpot. So that's what I found at Zentera. And again, I'm very excited for the opportunity to be able to leverage some of the stuff that I learned from his book.
That's great. Very, very insightful. Definitely very exciting moving forward for Zentera as well. So, obviously, I know you did touch on COVID a little bit just in the last question there. So how did COVID affect you?
It affected me negatively and positively. At the time and I remember this vividly like it was yesterday. So at the time I was working at CompuCom, I was selling managed service. I was leading large teams of different people on deals that were longer sales cycles, mostly 7-figure deals. And I had success. And quite frankly, I really enjoyed the work that I was doing when I was at CompuCom. I got to work with enterprise level companies. I got to work very complex deals. I got to basically be the quarterback of a team of individuals that all together working through a team dynamic, being able to win very complex deals. So before COVID hit, I had put in quite a bit of time building out a Hawaii opportunity of doing business with our partners in Hawaii. I spent probably 6 to 8 months building out this pipeline of all these interested individuals, of putting together shows. We had a ton of interest. Nobody in my company had ever built out Hawaii before. So I was very excited about all the potential that Hawaii was going to give on top of all the success that I had already had at CompuCom. And then COVID hit. So I remember very vividly, I had a meeting with a very large casino in March of that year. I got back from the meeting, landed. At the time I was in Orange County, California. My boss called me and told me that basically Hawaii is done. You're not going to be traveling anywhere. It made it very difficult going forward to now build up Hawaii, because Hawaii, the demographic anyway, they're very customer-centric approach to very hands-on, being there, putting the customer first. I couldn't do any of that over the phone. And it was very hard to get in front of people. So all that momentum I had going forward kind of all stalled. And at that point, I started to keep my eyes and ears open for other opportunities. I actually ended up moving from Orange County, purchasing a house in Las Vegas. but through all of that, in hindsight, I didn't. It was kind of bittersweet. But because of all of those things that I just outlined, it got me to where I wanted to be today with Zentera. Very happy. It all ended up working out. But in the beginning, with COVID, it didn't look too promising. So I'm sure people can relate with that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's definitely crazy to think, where everyone could have been if COVID didn't hit. But that, obviously that's left you with the opportunity that you have today. So definitely a bittersweet, definitely a bittersweet moment. So yeah, so since taking a leadership role at Zentera, what have been a low and high moment in your pursuit of scaling your business?
Yeah, so it's a complete roller coaster ride right now, which is very exciting. So I'm going to go back to Mark's 5 principles that I stated, in the previous question, and I'm trying to kind of stick to some of those to help scale our business. But we're going about it kind of in a different order than Mark went after it with HubSpot, and we have to do it this way. But we're starting at generating demand and experimenting with different technologies really before we build out our sales engine. And we have to do that because there's still quite a bit of adoption and education that needs to be done in Zero Trust. Like a perfect example is like AI. A lot of companies say they do AI. A lot of people don't understand what AI is. There's a lot of white noise out there. So there's quite a bit of work we have to do on the front end before we really start to build out our sales engine. But to answer your question now, I'm not going to use the word. I'm not going to use the word low. I'm going to substitute challenging instead of low for right now building on a sales channel of potential partners. So Zentera was successful before I started. They've already signed some really large customers and some small to medium business. So they're chugging along before I got here. So we still have our eye for sure on going directly to the end user, but it's really imperative to stay, in the mix and to make sure that we're building out our sales channel as well. So finding potential partners that might be the right fit, educating them on what Zero Trust is, trying to leverage their relationships to get in front of people, because that's the area, and especially with COVID that we've seen anyway, and I've seen personally, that not a lot of people still are taking face-to-face meetings, and they're not as accessible as they used to be before COVID. So another one of those challenges is getting in front of people. We need to leverage partners for their relationships, but we also want to make sure that it's a win-win for both ourselves and our partners, to make sure that it's successful for both. So from a high moment, today it's kind of go right in line with what I just shared, is actually signing those partners, finding those partners and making sure that we have common ground, working together with them, developing sales and marketing strategies that we can go to market with together. So in a very short period of time, we've already signed multiple different partners. We're trying to sign a few other strategic ones, but we're very optimistic about what those relationships are going to bring going forward, and excited to get out there and get the word out about Zentera.
Yeah, completely understandable. Yeah, very, very exciting time by the sounds of things. So, if you could, what would you tell your 20-year-old self?
Do we have to keep it PG? No. I would, first off, I would say study more. I was a horrible student. Let's just say I enjoyed college life for all it was worth. If there was anything else going on that could get me out of studying or doing homework or doing what I should be doing, I would always default to doing something else. So I would take school probably much more serious than I did. From a professional standpoint, I was kind of a bull in a china's closet. Still am kind of to a point, but I wanted everything yesterday when I started my professional career. I saw people that were ahead of me as I started my journey, and I wanted to do what they were doing. I knew in my heart that I could do what they were doing. I just needed somebody to give me a chance. But I kept pushing, kept pushing, kept pushing. So I would say probably maybe just to slow things down a little bit, be a little bit smarter in your approach to try to get to where you want to be, and put a little bit more thought into it instead of maybe being more headstrong and just going forward and pushing. And so I would say slow down a little bit on that.
Very, very useful advice. So who are your role models then?
So I have a few, and one is Simon Sinek. Not sure if you're familiar with him, but
I'm not actually, no.
Simon's an author. He's done TED Talks. He does many speaking engagements about leadership. So when I first saw one of Simon's TED Talks, I was hooked immediately. So he kind of leads with optimism. He has a great TED Talk called "Finding Your Why." Highly suggest anyone that has any aspirations of leading a team to watch that, "Find Your Why," and lead with empathy. But to kind of give you an idea, and he's got many stories, but one that I thought was very interesting was he had said that he was in Las Vegas for a conference years ago, and because the conference was so busy, he had to end up getting a hotel off strip. So in the morning before he would go to the hotel he was doing the conference at, he would stop at the Starbucks at the hotel he was staying at off strip. And as he waited in line, he noticed and observed that everyone that was working at the Starbucks was happy. Everyone moved through the line fast. Like they were like a fine oil machine. Like they weren't fooling around, but everyone was happy to be there. Everyone did things with a smile. And the experience he thought was really interesting, just because even though Starbucks is known for their customer service, this specific Starbucks location, he thought went above and beyond. So then he goes to the conference in Caesar, or it might have been Caesar's, I forget where it was. But when they take a break, he wanted to go to Starbucks again. So he noticed one of the people that actually worked at the Starbucks that he went to offsite worked at this Starbucks as well. But he observed when he was waiting in line for his coffee that the people were kind of miserable. They weren't as fast. Nobody looked like they were having a good time. And he's just like, I just saw this woman at my hotel, like be the beacon of optimism, be the beacon of having a good time, enjoying her work. So he's like, I just don't get this. So the next day he goes back to the Starbucks at the hotel that he was staying at. And he takes the woman to the side and says, I don't understand this. I saw you here and it looks like you're doing a great job. Everyone's happy with you. And I saw you at the conference that I was at, Starbucks, and you just didn't look happy. So she's like, I'm really not. So he's like, well, why? So basically the woman says at the Starbucks at the hotel he was staying at, the manager tasks the employees to be happy, to have a good time, to be outgoing, to make decisions on their own, work at the speed that they're comfortable with. Everything will end up working out. The manager stays out of the way and lets the employees do what they have to do. At the casino, at the Starbucks at the casino, completely different environment, micromanaged, embarrassed in front of the customers, almost like a task manager, making sure they do things as fast as humanly possible. Nobody's happy. So he goes into great depth in showing like the differences of, how empathy, how being positive, how being optimistic basically will give you different results in the same exact settings. So Simon for sure is a big one for me.
Mm-hmm. Definitely very, very insightful. Definitely something that, we could all probably live and understand a little bit more. So yeah, no, very, very interesting. So what are some of the best start that again. What are some of the best bits of advice that you've been given in your career?
So I'm going to use two. One would be to give back. So maybe fortunately or unfortunately, I'm not sure the answer, but as I went through my progression in selling software and managed service, I didn't necessarily have role models. I didn't have anyone that kind of took me under their wing. I didn't have anyone that showed me the ropes. So I had to figure a lot of things out on my own. Maybe that was a good thing, but at the time it was very challenging for me. But it made me have to really think on my feet and really make sure that, sometimes, and I always hated to have to ask people questions or ask people for help. I was always kind of ashamed of having to do that. So for me now in the role that I'm in, I think it's uber important for me to give back and make sure, I take people that are aspiring to do what I do, or they just want to be better in their job, that, I am empathetic to that I can give back any advice or any experience that I have to help them to be better in a more timely fashion than probably I was. And then secondly, and I think this is great advice that I got, was never lose a deal alone from a sales perspective. So I found that out more working in a group dynamic, working with larger deals, but I didn't really understand that, or was never really specifically told that, working with smaller deals. But the meaning of the advice for never lose a deal alone is you don't necessarily want to be a cowboy on deals. You want to make sure you're bringing in your manager, bringing in your VP, bringing in technical resources, bringing in leadership, bringing in lawyers when needed, making sure that as you go through the sales cycle, whether it's a smaller deal or a larger deal, that, if you do win a deal, you win it together, and it's a team sport, and everyone kind of had a hand in making sure that it was successful. Conversely, if you don't win the deal, it wasn't because you didn't involve the right people at the time to help push this deal over the finish line. Everyone had a stake. You can learn from, not winning a deal, but you're not putting your throat out there, so to speak, on the firing line by yourself, because selling should be a team sport, and you should never, try to do things on your own. So that one's a big one for me.
Great. That's some really, really great advice there. So thank you for sharing that. So could you share any training that you have taken over the years that has helped shape your professional growth?
I've been very fortunate in this aspect. So I've had access to all sorts of different training, some better than others. But I would say, just for anyone listening, if you could take away one salient point from a training, to me, that's successful. If you can take more than one thing, it's a home run. But there's a few that stand out to me that stay with me to this day, that when I go back to make sure that I'm doing the fundamentals correctly, these are the ones that I go to. So first one would be David Sandler. He's done many books. They do training. He has a disc called the Sandler Rules. It's currently run by Dave Mattson. They're all throughout the United States. They take a more of a consultative approach that's geared towards opening very open dialogue between you and the prospect. You really want to build trust, understand pain points, their budget, decision making, everything that goes into a sales cycle. And then if done correctly, the salesperson can, taking the Sandler approach to qualifying, can either figure out if this is a prospect that you should move on with, or they might just not be the right fit. So Sandler one. Barry Ryan, he does a training that he calls selling through curiosity. Basically what that is approaching sales almost like a child would. So opening or answer or asking, I should say, open-ended, short open-ended questions that are going to elicit long responses. Also with the selling through curiosity teaches a whole system of taking that approach almost like a child, starting with that short open-ended question that's going to elicit a long response. Within that response, you're going to get 3 to 5 salient points that you're going to want to ask longer questions, more specific with those salient points. And then you go right back to the open-ended, short open-ended question again. And then he shows you how to take specific notes and when you ask those questions. Third one would be John Barrows. I was fortunate to do a couple days training with him. But one of the big takeaways was he has an email called Why You Now. I always screw that up. But basically, it's a way and approach to make sure your emails are open. He leads with attention, interest, decision, action. But I've always taken the way that he does an opening email and use those principles with doing so. But I would say those 3.
Great. That's some great takeaways. Great bit of training there as well. So what should our listeners do more of in 2023?
Educate, get out there, read, do something that'll challenge you. Don't sit on the sidelines. Don't be afraid to ask for help. I would say just a lot of those things, especially with COVID starting to break more and people being more open to doing meetings and having phone calls, but to try to break through maybe through some of that COVID hangover, if you want to call it that, to really try to go back to more of a normal approach to how we did business before COVID.
Great. So yeah, it's been an absolute pleasure speaking to you and hearing your story and getting some of your wisdom. Thank you, everyone listening, and tune in next time for Growing Tech Fast.
Thank you, Emily.
Thank you very much. It's great. That went very well. Right? Yeah, that went great, I think.
We don't have to do any redos.
No, I don't think so. I think we pretty much nailed that.
I was so worried. I was very nervous, believe it or not. But,
yeah. Yeah,
awesome.
No, it's a bit nervous. Yeah.
That was awesome.
Great. Yeah.
Let me ask you real quick, Emily, will I be able to post this or is this just
Yeah, so I'll send it off to get edited and everything. It'll probably take like a week, 2 weeks, and then we'll share it on our socials. So then you can reshare it. It'll be on YouTube.
Awesome.
You can basically just do it that way.
Awesome. Well, this was great, Emily.
Thank you so much.
The opportunity. This was great.
Yeah. So I actually just have one last question from me. Obviously, you know what I do. I obviously help startups scale the sales team, and obviously we talked about the growth plans in 2023. So I would, out of interest, kind of, are you planning on hiring for sales currently, or is that more of 2023? Oh, because obviously we could definitely help. It's definitely something we can help with. So obviously, it wouldn't be doing my job if I didn't ask if that was a plan.
I'll make this promise to you, Emily, that we're not ready right this minute. Mm-hmm. As I was saying, one of the questions, like just to kind of give you an idea, we are building out those relationships right now with strategic partners. Some are taking longer than others. We do have a few, but we're hoping as we start to bring on more partners, and we're literally, I've only been on the job since, I've only been here a few months, so I'm still very new. But with that being said, and with everything going on with the mandates, it could be an avalanche for us in early 2023 or at some point.
Yeah.
I'll give you my word that if and when that happens, and when we do grow, when we're ready to grow, I will reach back out to you and I will work with you directly to assist with that.
Amazing, amazing. Yeah, just obviously wanted to ask that. Wouldn't be doing my job if I
No,
didn't ask what the
I
plans
appreciate
were. So
I appreciate that and I respect that. Please just stay in touch and drop a
yeah,
note every once in a while. But we're not
absolutely.
there
Yeah,
yet. But I give you my word that when we get to that point, I will
yeah.
use you as I'll use you specifically. So
Hmm.
you won't have any competitors, and I know how important that is. But
Amazing. Yeah. No, that's great. Great. Really good to hear. And, I'm definitely excited to, keep in touch, and obviously, hopefully we can, revisit a partnership in early end of, or in the
in the
latter part
future,
of
so
last
I
year.
mean,
So yeah,
if I'm not
absolutely.
doing my job, we got to have growth. So hopefully, at some point soon, we'll be ready to hire people.
Yeah,
So
absolutely. Yeah. So obviously I'll be in touch.
yeah,
And hopefully it'll be in a week or two. Obviously I'll keep you updated, and we will keep in touch. It was really great speaking to you today. Super, super insightful. So
you as
yeah,
well,
thank you
Emily.
very, very much for your time.
Thank you. I enjoyed it.
Yes, me too.
Have a good day.
Yes, you too. See you
We'll see
later.
you. Good night, actually. Good night
Yeah.
on Saturday.
Yeah, it's 5 o'clock now. So
Thank you, Emily.
right. See you later.
We'll see you. All right,
Bye.
bye.